Okay, and welcome into another Dooley Noted Podcast. Appreciate everybody for clicking on. Of course, you can watch us on Facebook and YouTube and listen to us on any one of 39 platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all those things. 39 platforms. And remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We got a great show for you today. The Commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey, will be joining us in just a bit. A little bit later in the show, my good friend John Clay, who covers all things Kentucky for the Lexington Herald-Leader, is their lead columnist and a great guy. Hoping to have somebody special for you Friday. I'm not sure who it's. I got two possibilities. I can only pick one of them, but we got to wait and see if we get all this confirmed, and then we'll just look for it on Facebook and Twitter, which is where I usually post all this stuff, and then you'll know who it is, and it'll really be a cool guest. That's all I'm saying. That's all I can say about it. Obviously, we've got a lot to talk about with what happened over the weekend with baseball, basketball, everything, every kind of sport that there is, and we saw it all here because that's what's going on right now. But it is my pleasure right now to bring in the Commissioner of the SEC, and I consider him a friend. I don't know if he considers me a friend, but I consider him a friend. The great Greg.
I do.
Sankey.
Yes.
Greg,
I'll put my foot on base there with the baseball theme. Yes.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm well. It's obviously a really busy time of year. I think everything except the sport of football is actually playing games. That's, right. I think, the first time in history. We've got soccer and volleyball in their championship season still. Finished women's basketball tournament, and we'll head tomorrow towards Nashville for the men's tournament.
Yeah. I wish could join you there. I saw what you tweeted out earlier today, and it hit me. I thought about it a lot because obviously you and I were both in Nashville a year ago, and it's been a year. It's hard to believe that year has gone by, but all the people that have helped get everything through to this point. We had a football season. We have had a basketball season, and we'll have an NCAA tournament. We're having a baseball, softball season. It is pretty amazing all the people that have helped. You talk about healthcare workers and everybody that has had something to do with it.
Oh, absolutely. I think I included in my tweet, nose swabbers, lab techs, doctors, people we didn't know last year who we're now able to visit with on a first name basis. Yesterday, actually at the trophy presentation for women's basketball, I asked the fans in the arena if they'd all stand up. You have to trust me for that. And say thank you to there was South Carolina student athletes on the stage. Georgia was still in the building, but every student athlete who's made what you just described in the seasons we've played possible. A lot of people deserve a lot of credit, but at the front of that line is young people who trusted all of us to lead them forward and provide an opportunity.
I was thinking back to last year's tournament and the press conference, the impromptu press conference you gave between the only two games we got to see.
Yeah.
And I told somebody the other day, I said, the commissioner was crestfallen. I mean, he loves this tournament. He loves to see them compete and to have to, first of all, say no fans, and then the next day have to go, we're done. We can't play, which obviously was the way you had to go. I mean, that had to be a very hard decision for you. And not only that, but, like, for example, at Florida, you had the number one baseball team, and gymnastics was ranked number 2, I think. All those things, to cancel all those sports had to be hard.
Excuse me. Yeah, the number 1 ranked women's basketball team in South Carolina. I think we had track teams in the number 1 ranking as well. In fact, Georgia and Florida were going to play baseball that Thursday night, I think, and they were 1 and 2.
Right.
The day we stopped. There are a couple things that were on my mind. I remember vividly. My bias is to play. And what's interesting is through the summer with our athletics directors and importantly our presidents and chancellors, I up front said my bias is to play. That's my job, right? To support competition. So that was one. The second, was the 2008 tournament when we were hit by the tornado and still found a way to play. We all stayed up for 2 straight days and and moved to Georgia Tech's arena, and we had a team play a doubleheader. Georgia played a doubleheader on a Saturday. Won them both. That's, and sometimes in really stressful times, you have to do remarkable things, which means you can reach remarkable achievement. And so I thought, wow, we were able to do it then, but we were at a stopping point. And even though we tried and tried and tried, just the circumstances removed that. So that was hard. And maybe most importantly, we're taking away when we disrupted everything, really on Friday the 13th, ironically. We said no weight training, no practice, no nothing in person. We were taking away the foundation that young people enjoy. For all the criticism, right, about college athletics, for all of the criticism, there's a foundation here that provides value and brings people through their journey. We're probably not perfect. Nobody's perfect. No endeavor is perfect, but we certainly provide a meaningful foundation as young people literally transition from adolescence to adulthood and into their career. And all of a sudden that was going to be gone in the way we knew it. So those were the weights upon me that you saw in those press conference conversations and in media interviews that took place.
Yeah, it's, one person or people, I should say, that I would think, and I think, you talk about a thankless job, are the people who had to put together those football and basketball schedules. I mean, football, obviously, and then you had to change it, and teams were having to sit out, but then coming back because you left that opening there. And also in basketball, we just saw it where teams got to play because you left that 1 week opening, but you had this situation at Texas A&M where, so it had to be that part of it, the people behind the scenes here at the SEC office, they did a heck of a job getting these things scheduled.
When you really look at all that's happened, actually, I had one of our university presidents at our tournament yesterday said just the scope of what it takes to put on an event like our women's tournament was just magnified for him as he sat there. You can go back to when we were communicating and Herb Vincent kind of helping me and talking through the plans, and really the 2 weeks before the tournament or 10 days, I had said to Herb, let's develop a communications information that we're going to play. We're going to have fans all the way till we're going to stop. So we knew that, there was a lack of clarity that may confront us. And then press releases for everything in between. And Herb and I joke, he spends a lot of time writing press releases we never use so that you're prepared. To summertime when testing was not available or was not time efficient. You take a test on a Monday and didn't have a result until a Saturday. We couldn't compete if that was the case. So Charlie Hussey, here, Charlie, go figure out how we can test on a consistent basis across our 14 campuses. And Tiffany Daniels, Misty Brown working with student athletes. We ended up in the Washington Post with a recorded article or recorded 90-minute conversation. Jay Clugston, the team doctor from Florida, is one of those doctors who volunteered their time, and now they're in the Washington Post. But that was representative of us doing what we're supposed to do, of informing people and being honest and transparent and saying we don't know if we didn't know. There was no no effort to run away from what we knew or what we didn't know. And then to the schedules, really to your question, Tiffany Daniels in soccer and volleyball, working with our senior one administrators, Mark Womack in football. I've joked, I thought the world would celebrate playing 10 SEC games, right, in a season. That's like we don't play enough against each other is one of the narratives. And then we got complaints about who was playing and where they were playing. And then when we had disruption, Pat, I think one of the really notable accomplishments this year is when we started and we picked the start date. We didn't delay the season. We set a new start date based on the factors of return to campus. University of Florida, first day of classes was September 1st. So we literally tracked 3 weeks after with what we learned from holiday and increases in virus diagnoses, and then found the next Saturday. That was the 26th. So we had time when we returned to campus to let things kind of settle out. And then when we lengthened our runway for preseason practice so people could stop and start if they needed to and spread out the time to get ready, develop a team. Then we went 3 straight weeks and played all 7 games. No other league has done that at the college or professional level in any sport. And I think that's a really important point, because had we just left things September 5th, we would have had teams not able to play on that opening weekend. And I thought nationally, we'd probably have 10 to 20% of teams not able to play. And at that point, if you had 24 or so football teams not playing at the college level and FBS level in Division I, the momentum would have been kind of downhill. We would have had problems. And so by setting a start date, Mark Womack had to reconfigure a schedule. Everybody opened home and away and had 2 home and 2 away in the first 4 weeks. And then it was reflected at the back end. And we built in open dates to maneuver. We had the disruption around COVID involving Vanderbilt and Florida that 4th week and could pivot. But, credit to what Dan and his team did. They played 8 straight weeks, as I recall, to finish the season. We didn't want that. In fact, we talked about doing that, just play straight through. Didn't want that, yet the circumstances around the virus dictated it. And the willingness of, when we had the Florida and Vanderbilt disruptions, I think 3 other teams to move their schedules in season. You go to Vanderbilt was playing Tennessee and Arkansas was playing Missouri on a Sunday. And then by the end of business on Monday, Tennessee wasn't playing, Arkansas wasn't playing, and Vanderbilt and Missouri were playing on Saturday. Just a credit to our campus leaders, coaches, athletics directors, public safety officials who have to adapt to game day, concessionaires to make all of those adjustments happening. Those are kind of the people that contributed to the ability to do what we've done.
When people give you credit for having a football season, do you blush at all? Because if the SEC doesn't play, we don't have a college football season.
Right. Yeah. There's probably a little bit of credit for me, but there's also, I get credit for things that I probably don't deserve credit for, and I also receive criticism for things I don't deserve the criticism for. But that's the reality of the job. And, it doesn't happen if our student athletes, like our leadership council, aren't engaged in asking us hard questions. It's a tribute to them. But volleyball, student athletes, soccer, cross country, our fall group, they asked us hard questions. They were dealing with a high level of uncertainty. Our coaches were stressed. You could feel it on video conferences. Like, what are we doing and why and how? And their willingness to trust us, our staff who, were doing kind of normal jobs in abnormal ways from distances and not with meetings, with issues that were not imagined, and then had all of this other stuff on top of it. Like, we were going into the season, the month before the season, you kind of know the lead-in issues. Yeah. We didn't deal with any of those. Those just had to get done. We were dealing with COVID issues. I think you look at the willingness of people to to fight through, and I'll just make it local, given all you have on display behind your right shoulder. The willingness of Dan and his team to fight through a disruption, and even him personally with COVID, and then to play those 8 straight weeks and to come back after a loss in our championship game and gave a heck of an effort. And you saw how good the University of Florida football team was last year when they went toe to toe, and then you saw Alabama in the playoffs and their opponents. You take what Mike's encountered with his team. I can't say enough about that leadership. So any like recognition of my leadership, I look at the leadership that's happening day to day, moment by moment with young people. I think the job that Mike's done has been really remarkable. And I saw Cam in Greenville and just talked about his battle back after having to set out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And then the cool thing is to see baseball and softball, who this week last year we stopped. Just so happy to have them back. And, right now we have the top 5 teams in the country, which that's like not supposed to happen, but it does. And it
Why not
happens with us.
6?
That's pretty
Why
cool.
only 5? I mean, I can't believe you
Well,
don't have 6.
when Florida was ranked 6th last week, we had 4, and then Scott Strickland and I had the conversation like, how do they drop us to 6? And so we got them back in. So I'm trying to figure out who's going to jump up to 6 next week, and maybe we can just go sequentially through the season and end with like the top 14.
Yeah, it is an interesting. I do have a question about scheduling, but it is an interesting phenomenon that we're dealing with baseball this year, and that because the draft was so shortened, this may be the greatest season ever in college baseball, because there's so many guys came back. At Florida, for example, both their aces come back. We think they're going to be gone. It's going to be really interesting. But I wanted to ask you about, because I'm sure you're getting a lot of questions, or a lot of people who think they know best, and they say, hey, that 10-game SEC season was great. Let's do it all the time.
Well, a couple things. That was crisis management, right? That put us in that circumstance. And last year, with what developed in the spring and over the summer, we had to control our schedule. And the disruption is the evidence. Like, we could not have been arguing in November about, well, I've got this non-conference game, I can't play that. We had to have control, which we did. That's not normal. Nobody's inattentive to how do we adjust, how do we adapt, but 10's never been the center of the conversation. And I think last year is really healthy evidence of the need for non-conference games and quality non-conference games, particularly in college football playoff selection. So, we'll get back to the 8, and, you got the FSU game. I give overtime. Florida's played 10 quality A5 opponents a time or two. Miami a couple of years ago up front. I haven't looked at the schedule this year. I just don't have it memorized. I think those are really healthy opportunities.
Yeah, I was talking to Scott Strickland about this Wednesday, and one year, 2031 or whatever, they've got nothing but Power 5 teams. So you never know how that. I think everybody knows and understands. It's not enough that the Gators are playing a game. You've got to be playing somebody that's worth going to see, and I think that's really important. Does it?
And I think all 14 are learning that. You've seen a little bit of a pivot away from neutral sites to home and homes to bring in those high quality opponents.
Does it seem at all surreal to you that it's been a year when you think about it?
Yeah.
And think,
That's like, I'm sorry to jump in. That's the understatement. Absolutely. It's been so long and so tedious. And then we're here, and that's life. And one of the lessons, in fact, Pat, I shared this with the New York Times editorial board member, was they were telling us what we were doing was wrong. They'd written their editorial before they visited with me. And my observation was 2019, let's just take the football season, was LSU's time and Joe Burrow's time. That was special. When I engaged in that interview, I had no idea how the season would play out. No idea. And if people want to think, well, we knew so-and-so would be good, no idea whatsoever, because there was such a mental game that was front and center, and still is, I would argue, in men's basketball, women's basketball, going to their bubbles to play the NCAA tournament. Those mentally prepared for 3 weeks in that environment will succeed and may overcome some physical, some talent deficiencies. But going back, the reality was 2020 was going to be someone's time. We didn't know who. It turns out it was Devontae Smith's time. No one had him on the Heisman watch list in August. That doesn't happen if we don't play. Vanderbilt wins the women's soccer tournament. That doesn't happen if we don't play soccer, which very few leagues did. And the next week she kicks in a football game.
Yeah.
And, 2 months later, she's in the inaugural event for the new president. That doesn't happen if we don't play. You take Arkansas right now. Their men's basketball team, I think, has won 11 straight conference games,
Right.
10 or 11 straight men's basketball games. That doesn't happen if we don't try. What I just said about, Mike's leadership of his team. I mean, he's going to learn and grow as a coach and a leader, as a human being, because we tried. Florida gymnastics team, where they are right now, because we tried. Over and over, the men's swimming team, 9 straight conference championships. Kentucky swimming on the women's side, never before won a conference championship. Doesn't happen if we don't try. And once time goes, it's gone. It's not as if we take a lap, we all sit on the sidelines and come back and everything's okay and the same. And I didn't know if we could do it, but I thought it was important we try. And that's why it was important we try, because those are opportunities that are cherished and that people don't have again.
I know I've kept you too long, but I wanted to ask you this one difficult question, and that is this. You're sitting here, and it can't be fun for you to have some of the situations you have in terms of Tennessee football with NCAA issues. We know Florida just had one with the show cause, obviously the LSU and Auburn situations. I mean, how frustrating is that for you as a commissioner of this league, to try to get these guys in line?
Yeah, it's frustrating because I think, unlike other conferences, it attaches to who we are. Mm-hmm. That's really not who we are. You take the Florida football situation. I've said for years, people having a conversation in a high school shouldn't be, criminalized by NCAA rules. That's normal human behavior. And I would argue we ought to have our coaches talking to 9th and 10th graders to give them hope for a college future. That's supporting a college going culture. Yet there's a boundary line, and there's accountability when it's crossed. You look at the Tennessee situation, absolutely disappointing to be in that circumstance. Yet a chancellor who stood in front or sat in front of a microphone and enacted change quickly. That's leadership. That's new leadership. That's what we encourage. Tom Galligan at LSU with their report about Title IX concerns and sexual assault on Friday. And I wrote down, some of the things he wrote. That's a pivotal moment. Or some of the things he said. He said that's a pivotal moment for that university. It has to be. It's a moment of reckoning. Those are Tom's words. It must be. And it's a time for change. And he apologized. I mean, the leader of the university, an interim president, he's been in that role for a year, working through any number of issues, acknowledged that commitment to change and the recognition of the hurt caused. We have to deal with these things. And that's something my predecessor said. We don't want them. We don't want those issues. But when they arise, because it is a human, imperfect endeavor, our leadership has to deal candidly and directly with each and every one. And I'm disappointed we have these issues, but I'm encouraged that they're being dealt with directly.
Well, I know you're excited about this week, and I wish I could join you up there. I got to see one game last year, so but I will be watching it.
I saw none. I know we played 2, but I saw 0.
Exactly, but it's always great talking to you. I really appreciate your time, and good luck with everything going forward. And again, thank you so much for everything you've done to help us have seasons. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done, with nothing to write about. I mean, I got to a point where there was only so many look backs at the Gator history that I could have done. I think I'd run out of them. So again, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, and it's last time we've talked, the other interviews have been like radio interviews, so I've never seen you. So you look younger now that you're retired or whatever that means, and you're adapting to new technology. So appreciate the chance to visit. Good to see you. Stay in good health, and let's figure out how to sit in that hotel lobby bar in Omaha come June.
I will do that. I will fly out there just to do that, because that's one of my favorite times I've ever had.
Pressure for Sully, but there's a goal for the two of us, right?
All right, Greg, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, take care, Pat. Stay healthy.
All right, Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC. We appreciate him and really enjoyed that conversation. I hope you guys did too. And I do want to, we got a couple minutes here before we take a break, and then we'll bring on John Clay. But look, I know what happened Sunday. Nobody was happy about. The shame of it was that I have said this before over and over, that the one thing about this team is that they play hard, and then Saturday they did not play hard, to the point where at one point Mike White pulled, put Alex Klatsky in the game. He said at least somebody maybe will go out there and try. I don't understand it to some ways why they didn't. I mean, there's a lot going on there with that team. I don't know where Scotty Lewis is gone. I don't know what's going on. But it was certainly not a great performance. They got off to that fast start, and then just nothing went right. I mean, nothing went right. The one play that I think epitomized it was when Tennessee got 4 straight rebounds, offensive rebounds. Guys just weren't putting the effort out. And maybe this is a team that got tired mentally. Maybe it was a team that obviously another setback. Trey Mann had migraines, could not go, and they found that out the morning of the game. Maybe it was just too much. I don't know. I don't blame this one on Mike. If I want to blame him for everything, it's not having a point guard. And so when Trey Mann goes out, and Trey Mann's not a point guard, he's had to play that role. Quez Glover dribbles the ball out of bounds twice without any pressure. He just dribbles it out of bounds. I mean, it was just everything that could go wrong went wrong. Noah Locke has gotten to, I think people are just saying, look, do not leave him alone. And if you remember when Michael Frazier got to that point and people saying, don't leave Michael Frazier alone, he started driving the ball a little more. It wasn't really effective, but I don't even think Noah's physically strong enough to do those kind of things. So teams are figuring out how to play Florida a little bit. But still, we'll see where they end up in the NCAA tournament. I'm going to talk more about that. And of course, losing the double bye means they will be playing on Thursday. So it's a weird deal. They played on Sunday. They might as well have just stayed up in Tennessee, right? And because now they have to go to Nashville and they'll probably leave Tuesday. So they come home, have a day, leave the next day. So it's kind of a weird deal for them. I'm not sure that was totally fair. And that probably is a question I could have asked the commissioner, but I asked him pretty much everything else I wanted to get in. We got a lot to get to. We're going to bring on John Clay. He's going to talk about Kentucky basketball, but also the SEC tournament and who he thinks could be the surprising team there. We got to get to the Leonardo's quick picks. We had 2 qualifiers this week. Adams Ribco, Gators of the weekend. We'll get to that. 3 things, all that and more coming up on Another Dooley Noted Podcast. This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member, and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. All right, welcome back to another Dooley Noted Podcast. One thing that I brought this up on my Back Nine column, which is on WRUF.com. You know, is there even a concern that Florida may not get in the tournament? Look, I don't think there is. I think they're going to get in. They've got 8 quad 1 and quad 2 wins. They've got the one bad loss to South Carolina, which was a bad loss. And if you watch Kentucky's game against South Carolina, you realize how much worse it was. What you can't do is lose to either Vanderbilt or Texas A&M. The winner of that game is who Florida will play on Thursday. They are 109 and 143 in net ranking, which is not very good. Florida's still 29. I mean, I know it's just a guy, but it should get Florida in. The trouble is, I would rather they be a 10 than an 8 or a 9. At 8 or 9, now you got to play a 1. 10, you play a 7, and you play a 2. So it's actually a better deal. All right, right now we are going to go talk to a good friend of mine, one of the best in the business, from the Lexington Herald-Leader. John Clay joins us right now. And Johnny, how are you today?
I'm good, Mr. Dooley. How are you?
You staying healthy?
We're staying healthy. I've got my first vaccine shot scheduled for my second one at the end of March, so things are looking up.
I got both, Bubba.
Good for you. Congratulations.
I feel like a different person, yeah, to be honest with you.
It is kind of amazing what it does to your mental state.
Yeah.
Just to get that first shot for me, I just felt, so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to start out by talking about what we saw Saturday, and a lot of it, look, I know that is the Kentucky I think a lot of people thought they'd see. Unfortunately, it was also the South Carolina we've seen a lot this year. They were awful in that game. I watched the whole game. They were pathetic, and I mean, in South Carolina, I'll give Kentucky credit. They took advantage of the inability to handle the ball and all that stuff that South Carolina did poorly, inability to make shots. But that was the Kentucky I think a lot of us thought we'd see as they got later in the season.
Yeah, just absolutely. It was a good kind of a scene setter to go into the SEC tournament for them. They had not won a game like that really all season, really going back to the Moorhead game at the beginning of the season. And Moorhead turned out to be a good team. They won the OVC tournament over the weekend. But yeah, and Cal got the emptiest bench. He got to play some guys who haven't been getting much playing time. So many games, Kentucky's had so many games that have gone down to the last 4 minutes, and then they couldn't execute in those 4 minutes, and they lost those games. So that was kind of to have a breather like that. Probably helps their mental state going to Nashville, and they need all the help they can get going to Nashville, Pat.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've got to go 4 in 4 days. I don't even know if they've ever played 4 games in 4 days in the history of the tournament.
That's a good question. It's been a while if that's been the case. I guess you'd have to go back to the Billy G days. I think one year they lost to LSU. I think when I think LSU was the number 1 seed in the tournament, so they would have had to win 4 in a row. 4 in 4 days, but right. Yeah, it's been a while. This is by far, this is the worst seed for the SEC tournament, that Kentucky's had for quite a while.
Yeah, I looked it up today. Florida's never played 4 in 4 days, so they've never gotten that far when they played that early game. But yeah, it is an interesting situation there, in that, as you know, when it was in Atlanta, we called it Catlanta. When it was in Nashville, it's Cashville, whatever you want to call it. Kentucky fans take over that Broadway, and I mean, they're everywhere. You can't get around that town, but it ain't going to be that way this year, obviously. With, what is it, 3,300 they're going to allow in? And
yeah, 3,400.
Do you have any feel for how many, and Kentucky fans are going to buy up those Vandy tickets and go to games, but any feel for how many they're going to be allowed to have?
Well, I mean, they'll have probably more than their fair share. What a lot of times happens with the SEC tournament when it's a non-COVID year, you get a lot of Kentucky fans from Western Kentucky. It's an easy drive down to Nashville. Then you got a lot of Kentucky fans who can't get in to get tickets at Rupp Arena, so they save up to go to the tournament because they got a better chance of getting in for the tournament. Cal made the joke over the weekend or after the South Carolina game, said, "I wish we could have a full house." Hopefully Kentucky fans will find a way to get in, even if they have to go through windows or whatever to get in. Wear your masks, he said, so nobody will know who you are when you get in there. But the other thing, dampered the enthusiasm, the fact that they're 9-15, 8-9 in the conference, and number 8 seed. So there's not quite the enthusiasm or the interest for the SEC tournament as there would normally be. But considering the proximity, considering it is Kentucky basketball, I'm sure there'll be plenty of Kentucky fans there on Thursday when they play Mississippi State.
So he made a comment kind of like what Dan Mullen did after the Texas A&M game. He said, pack the swamp. He wants to.
It's like, forget about COVID. We need the fans. We got to have Big Blue Nation to get to the NCAA tournament. We have to do whatever it takes.
Well, and I know one issue, obviously, you have to beat the team that's right in front of you. But the other issue is that Alabama seems to be pretty good, and they're going to have to play them in the second round. So that would be rough enough.
Right. And Alabama beat Kentucky by 20 on Kentucky's home floor in a game earlier in the year. Then when Kentucky went to Tuscaloosa, they played them much closer. They actually led in the second half over Alabama. But again, that was another one of those games where in the last 4 minutes, Kentucky couldn't execute. They turned the ball over. Alabama took advantage, ended up beating them by 11. I think, is Kentucky capable of beating Alabama? Yeah, I think they're capable of beating them, but everything has to go right for them. They've got to make a lot of threes. Three-point shot has been a problem all year. The games where they have played well is when they have shot the three well, and that hasn't always been the case. I think they're ranked number 205 right now in three-point percentage. Most of the year they were in the 300s, so they've shot the ball better here of late. But yeah, and of course there's the old thing about it's hard to beat a team 3 times, especially in your conference, because everybody knows everybody so well. But Alabama's and Arkansas have been so good, especially down the stretch. It's hard to see Kentucky beating Alabama, but if they do beat Alabama, they're going to have a lot of things go right.
Yeah, I remember that year, it was 2014, when Florida had to beat Kentucky 3 times, and the third time was by far the hardest. Scotty Wilbekin diving on the floor for a loose ball to win the game. That's how difficult it was. So there's something to that old cliche.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring up that tournament, that 2014 tournament. Florida had handled Kentucky pretty easily during the regular season. The fact that Kentucky was able to play them so close in that finals, even though they lost, I think it was 61-60 was the final. And that was the year of Cal's tweak, where he tweaked something. In what
Has he ever told you what it was?
Yeah, it was basically that he told Andrew Harrison not to shoot, pass the ball, don't shoot. And that, I think, was the tweak. And then they made the run after that to the championship game, where Florida got knocked off in the Final Four, which I think Florida was the superior team. I think Florida was probably the best team in the country that year, but they got beat in the Final Four. Kentucky was able to win their Final Four game, and Kentucky made the championship game and lost to Connecticut. But I think playing Florida so close after Florida had handled them so easily during the season really gave Kentucky a confidence boost that year going into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think it does say something about Alabama and what Arkansas has been able to do, because I think for everybody, for all these teams, and look, Florida's had to deal with more than anybody. They thought one of their teammates had just died on the floor at one point. But everybody's mentally, it's got to be tough for all these kids to constantly be going through this, to have games that you think are going to be played. I know Kentucky's had a few with A&M and stuff like that. So to me, the teams, and I'm a big believer in this. I talked about it in the podcast last week. When you look at who's won this year during COVID, the Lakers, best team, Dodgers, best team, Alabama football, best team, Tom Brady, best guy. And so the fact that Alabama and Arkansas are where they are, my gut is they're going to play in the final.
Yeah, it sure shapes up that way. I think Alabama's been the best team, through the 18-game schedule. Of course, not everybody played 18 games. And then Arkansas's been so good of late. They've won 11 conference games in a row. They beat Alabama in Fayetteville. If you looked at it on paper, you'd say, yeah, it sure looks like an Alabama-Arkansas final. But there's some teams, and I think Florida's one of those teams that if things go well for them, they're capable of winning it. I think Tennessee's capable of winning it. We had to make picks for the paper for our website, and I picked Tennessee to win it. But just because I think Tennessee was the preseason favorite, maybe this is the time that they put it all together. Rick Barnes has gotten Tennessee to the finals the last 2 times the tournament was played, so he knows how to coach in the tournament. He's been around for a long time. And you never know what is the mindset of Alabama and Arkansas. As you mentioned, it's been a really tough year just to get through the year, just to get through the regular season. Are they going to be, not take a breather, but are they going to be up after playing so well to play in the tournament? We'll see. I think they're the 2 best teams, but as we all know, the 2 best teams don't always make it to the finals of the conference tournament.
Well, and that's the thing. The conference tournament is unlike anything else you do. It's not even like the NCAA tournament in terms of, where at least you get a day off. And you're not, there are going to be a lot of teams that will be eliminated with a loss in this conference, but obviously the 6 we think will get in. What's your gut about Ole Miss? I mean, they probably have to beat LSU in the second round to have an argument to be an NCAA team.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously they're on the bubble. They played real well at the end of the year. They beat Kentucky and Oxford, and was impressed with them then. I really love Devontae Shuler as a player, and I think Kermit Davis knows how to coach. So if I'm a team, whether it's LSU, whoever in the tournament, I don't really want to play them. They also play a little bit different style with that zone, with that 1-3-1 zone. I think they're definitely capable. I think they definitely are capable of winning a couple of games and making it in the tournament. And even if they get in the NCAA tournament, I think they could be a matchup problem for some teams. But I do think if they get beat in the first game, I don't see them in the field of 68. They got to win 1, maybe 2 to get in.
Yeah, the other team, in fact, my dark horse pick would probably be LSU, because I look at that team and I go, I like a lot of their players. I love Watford. I think he's tremendous. And they have, obviously when you've got a guy that's averaging 20 points a game in Cam Johnson, it's pretty amazing. But they've had some inexplicable losses. And look, I'm not gonna get into an argument or a discussion about how they got those players, but that's the team I would keep an eye on. And if they beat Ole Miss, and that would be a Friday game, right? When they would play Ole Miss, and then they would play in the second. They would get Arkansas.
Right.
Which,
I think that's right.
Who knows?
Yeah. No. It's funny about when LSU came into Rupp. Will Wade, he went with a full court press, started off with a full court press. I think his thinking was Kentucky at that time was really turning the ball over a lot. I think he thought he could force some turnovers, get some points off turnovers. It actually worked to their detriment because it speeded Kentucky up. They played. That was one of the best games Kentucky's played all year. And I think after that game, Cal kind of made the decision where we need to play faster. We look better when we play faster. So if it did end up being Kentucky, LSU, or somebody else playing again, I think the LSU would have a different strategy. But I'm like you. I think LSU's got a lot of talent. Obviously, Cam Thomas, Watford, Darius Days, Smart. They've got some experienced guys who've been through it before. I think a lot with them is how, can they play defense? Can they play defense night after night? I think they've got the offensive firepower. Can they do what they need to do on the defensive end?
And that's the interesting thing about the SEC tournament, because you're not going to have a fan base. Not just Kentucky's not going to have it. Nobody's going to have a real strong fan base to kind of energize you when it's hard enough. When you're going every day, you're playing every day.
Yeah, and of course, and the other thing too, you mentioned about the SEC tournament being different than the NCAA tournament. Everybody knows each other so well. You've played in most years anyway. You played everybody at least once. Kentucky didn't play Texas A&M this year, like you mentioned. Texas A&M, they went a whole month without playing a game. But some teams you play twice. Everybody knows what everybody runs. Everybody knows the strengths and weaknesses. So when you get in the tournament and you're playing day after day, that familiarity can kind of tip the balance one way or another. There'll be things that you learn from playing that team the first time that will help you the second time. So you never really know, how it's going to go. So that always, to me, makes the conference tournament a lot different as well.
All right, before I let you go, one last question about Kentucky. How do you explain their record in terms of, has there been some mistakes in talent evaluation, and I know that Kentucky fans are usually pretty patient with things, and they don't get upset, when they're losing games and stuff.
Very even keel.
Very even keel. I remember the guy who called in the call-in show when Kentucky was 22-3 and told Tubby, "We're not giving up on you yet." That story will stay there forever. But the explanation is it's mind-boggling. I've watched every game they play this year. But I sometimes I can't believe they've lost. How'd you lose?
Right. It's been kind of a perfect storm. Cal, because he always has so many newcomers, and he had even more this year. Keon Brooks is the only guy on the team who played any sort of minutes last year. He needs that summer for the guys to play pickup together, to work out together, to get to know each other. Then they need a good, training camp, preseason, where they learn more about each other and learn more what Cal expects from them. And they need those gimme games at the first of the year to kind of get a comfort level and build some confidence. They got none of those things. Then you add to that, the evaluation process. Some of these guys were not quite as ready as Cal maybe thought they would be or hoped they would be. B.J. Boston is a good example. He was the highest rated of the freshman class coming in. He's just not physically strong enough to do what he wants to do. He has had a hard time driving the ball. He's had a hard time drawing fouls because he's just not – he needs to be in the weight room. He needs to get in the weight room over the summer. I don't know whether he's going pro or not. Most people think he is going to go pro. Whatever he does, he just needs to get stronger. So they've had some other guys that they thought would come along a little faster. The other thing is that Cal needs a point guard. He needs a point guard to play really well, to create, one who maybe can score like a Brandon Knight, but also to create like a John Wall did as well. He hasn't had that this year. Devin Askew reclassified. He really should be a high school senior. Davion Mintz he's more of an off guard. Now, the last game against South Carolina, he put Mintz at the point. They played better. As you mentioned, South Carolina's not very good, so we don't know for sure, but we're pretty sure that that's the lineup he's going to go with the SEC tournament. So I think a combination of those things kind of work together, but not in my wildest dreams, even with all this, that I would think that Kentucky would be going in the SEC tournament with a 9-15 record, even in a COVID, even in a global pandemic. Would I even think of that?
And I know losing record at Rupp Arena, which that's the first time that's ever happened. I love the big guy, man, Isaiah Jackson. I mean,
yes.
He had a couple of games where I just went, cha-ching. This guy's going to make some money at the next level.
Yeah.
He is big and strong enough. I can tell you that.
Yeah. The guy who really loved him was Nate Oates. Nate Oates recruited him hard because Oates knew him from his time as a high school coach in Michigan. I think Oates thought he had him at one point, and then Kentucky ended up with him. He's aside from Cal, he might be Jackson's biggest fan. But yeah, Jackson's got the potential to be a lottery pick.
Golly, if Alabama had him too.
Yeah, well, can you think of that?
They'd be up in that Baylor, Michigan, Gonzaga level.
They would be. You're right.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
Right.
Hey, John, always great talking to you, man. I wish I was going to see you in Nashville, like in the old days, and we could sit there and have a good time and talk about different things. But those days are over for a while. But we can Zoom back and forth there.
That's right. That's right.
Thanks a lot.
You've had both your shots, so we're going in the right direction.
That's right. So maybe next year I'll be up there. Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate you joining us, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
Okay, John Clay, columnist for the Lexington Herald-Leader, one of the greats, and I wanted to talk to him a lot about Kentucky, but about the tournament, because I love this tournament. The SEC tournament is one of my favorite things in the world. It's sad that I won't be able to be there. I wouldn't have been there anyway because I'm retired, right? Cannot put enough sarcastic quotations around the words retired. All right, before we get our next break, we are going to get to the Leonardo's Quick Picks, our favorite thing. We always love talking about the great food at Leonardo's and the great pizzas there and the great guy that Kyle Cohen is and one of our favorite people. We did get 2 qualifiers from last week. Again, we've streamlined it a little bit because it was kind of getting too complicated. Maybe for me it was too complicated. I don't know if it was for the people who listen and watch the show, but for me it was getting too complicated. Jeremy Toms and Dwayne Searle, you both got them all right, which was only 2 of them, but you got them right. And that was, of course, that Tennessee beat Florida. Not many people picked Tennessee. I understand. You thought Florida would beat them after the way they handled them in Gainesville. And then that softball would split 1-1. that was a weird deal. I mean, and how well they did here, I guess it's not weird. You play better at home than you do on the road. Then they go there, and next thing you know, it's 5-0. I'm ready to settle in, watch a little softball. I got the golf on one channel and softball, and I got a basketball game. And all of a sudden, I go, softball. No, that ain't gonna work. We got to get off of that because that was bad. So just one of those bad performances, and they'll be fine. Don't worry. What are they now? 14-1 or something? They'll be fine. We're getting ready for both in baseball and softball league play, and it's going to get really interesting, as if it's not been interesting enough. And with the week we have coming up with the tournament, and then we get to the NCAA tournament, and conference play starts for baseball and softball. Oh, it's going to be great. I'm a sports guy. You know that. I love sports. I live for sports. I love to watch it. I love to talk about it. But this, so by the way, it's important to give you the Leonardo's quick picks for this week. We have a 2 for here again, and they are quick picks when you only have 2, right? Here's the games we're going to give you, because again, Fridays, if Florida wins Thursday, they'll be playing on Friday right around the time of the last part of our show. We'll still obviously do a show, and hopefully it'll be a great one, especially if I get one of these 2 guests that I'm hoping to get. But the game I want to give you is the game that will decide who Florida plays. So Texas A&M versus Vanderbilt, the first game, the only game on Wednesday night. That is your first Leonardo's quick pick. Texas A&M versus Vanderbilt. I don't know who's winning that game. It's a toss-up as far as I'm concerned. A&M has only been back after missing a whole month, but they've actually looked pretty good in the games they played since they got back. So that's one of them. The other one, Florida and Stetson playing baseball Wednesday night. Stetson's pretty good, and I know I got friends who are Stetson people, including my brother-in-law who's coming up for the game. They think this is the year to get Florida, even though we know how good Florida is. And again, when you get a midweek game, you're getting different kinds of pitchers. So that's very simple. Florida or Stetson, who do you like there? So you can't get much simpler than picking 2 winners, okay? And then, of course, on Friday, we'll have some really interesting quick picks. I can tell you one of the ones on Friday will be, where's Florida seated when the NCAA tournament comes out on Sunday, Selection Sunday, which used to be a huge day for me because I'd always be at the site of the NCAA or the SEC tournament, and I would be sitting there, and I'd wait for it. Oh, Florida, and they're going here. All right, let's get on the phone, all right, let's see if we can get a flight that's reasonable. Oh my gosh, I can't get anything that's reasonable, blah, blah. It was always an exciting day for me. For this year, I'll just sit there and go, they're all going to Indianapolis. We already know where they're going. That is the one good thing, is for those people who are covering it, you could make your flight to Indianapolis. You knew we were going there. So that's the only place they were going. So there was that. All right, we still have to get to the Adams Rib Company Gator of the Week, or Gators, could be Gators again. Remember, we've done that a couple times. And 3 things on the other side. You're watching or listening to Another Dooley Noted Podcast. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. All right, welcome back to another Dooley Noted Podcast, and I got a really cool text just now from Bob Julian, who won our last prize package. We picked his name out of the hat, and he won. He got a couple of hats and a shirt, and of course, $50 gift certificate at Leonardo's. And he said, "I hit it right on the head last week on the podcast." Yes, that his plan is to dinner's on him at Leonardo's the Friday night before the first game next year. So I figured that's what he would do. And of course, he lives out in Niceville, so he's going to come in and do that. So again, we hope it'd be nice to get a local winner. Every winner we've had has been from out of town, but it's good that people from all over are listening to us. And one reason I've included stuff that isn't just gift certificates. It's been, shirts and hats and stuff like that. So, and we'll continue to do that. We'll have another drawing coming up. All right, it's time for our Adams Ribco Gators of the Weekend. And I hate to do this because when I made the basketball team my Gators of the Weekend, and instead of being an individual, what they do, they lose the next two games. So I jinxed them. But I don't think there's no gymnastics meet this week. They have a week off before they go and face the rest of the SEC, and it's in Huntsville, I think, Alabama. I'm not even 100% sure, but they are the Gators of the Weekend because not only did they win the SEC, but as we know, they clinched a share last week, right? This week they have to go to Alabama, and Trinity Thomas has an ankle that's bothering her, and they don't want to take any chances on it. So they want to make sure she's 100% healthy, and they go to battle again without their best gymnast, their star. And they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And if Alabama had won, Alabama would have shared the trophy. And Florida's getting a trophy either way, but no trophy for you, said the soup Nazi to Alabama. So good for Florida for doing that. Clinched it, undefeated regular season. So proud of those young ladies and so proud of Jenny Rowland for doing such a great job. They have been amazing and so much fun to watch. I mean, I cannot imagine what the crowds would have been like this year, as good as they were. All right, so that is our Adams Ribco Gators of the Weekend. We'll be back Friday with Gators of the Week. Have a lot to choose from because we've got baseball, softball, everything else going on. And we'll wrap it up today with three things. We're still looking for one more sponsor to get three things, and I think we'll be close to being done with selling sponsorships. And we appreciate, of course, our great title sponsors, Titan MRI and ABC Fine Wine and Spirits, who do a great job, and we look forward to continuing that. But we need a new sponsor for three things. Anybody? You know how to get a hold of me. 317-3444. No big whoop. It's not hard. All right, three things. Number one, here's a story that we don't even talk about very much. Tennis, men's tennis, Florida's men's tennis. They're really good. They beat number 3, Tennessee. Somebody beat Tennessee this weekend. Florida won, but the great story is that two of the biggest points came from Ben Shelton. Who's Ben Shelton? He is the son of the coach, Brian Shelton. Not only that, he won the doubles point, he and his partner, and then he came back after losing 0-6 and won the next two sets and helped Florida beat Tennessee. So we don't talk very much about men's tennis. It kind of gets swept aside because there's so much going on in this town. So many things going on. For example, I think Gator Nationals are this weekend, and the only reason I know is because I was playing golf yesterday and I heard the engines going. I think it's this weekend. We don't even have time to get to that. Gator Nationals is a big deal, and it used to be a huge part where I would go out there and cover it and write columns and everything, but I don't have to do that now. Number two, we would be disrespectful not to include Jacob Young in our podcast today. who broke the Florida record, 30 consecutive games with a hit. He got an infield hit. It definitely was a hit, but it's pretty amazing. Over 3 seasons, he's had 30 straight games with a hit. It's such a COVID story is what it is, you know. But he's unbelievable, and to keep doing this, a lot of games he's had a hit in his first at bat and just got that out of the way. And I don't know that he'll ever get to 54, which is Robin Ventura's record, but see what he can do. See if he can get to 31 on Tuesday night. But congratulations to him for doing that and breaking the record. In fact, he broke the record held by Tim Olson. And for those of you watching or listening right now, later today during the tailgate, with me and Jeff Cardozo, we're going to have Tim Olson on, so that'll be fun. I was thinking about getting him on here. Maybe we will. I like Tim Olson. I really like his dad. We used to text back and forth. Finally, this week again, things that get swept aside because there's so much going on. The Players' Championship. Yeah, I'll be. I don't know. I don't have enough TVs for this week. I don't. I need one for golf. I need one for basketball. I need one for baseball. I need one for softball. There's just not enough. There's too much stuff going on. But the Players is such a big deal, and we don't talk about it being the fifth major anymore. Third or fourth major? No, fifth major. We don't talk about it anymore. It's just a great tournament. That's all that matters. There's not going to ever be a fifth major, okay? And I think everybody's finally gotten over that point. But it is a great tournament, great field, unbelievable money, great golf course. I love the course. I love playing that course. I played it probably 24 times. It'll be a lot of fun. So it's just one more thing going on. All right, we got to get out of here. We've been on for just quite long enough, and we appreciate everybody for tuning in, whether you watch this on YouTube or Facebook, or whether you're listening to us on one of the 39 platforms. Be sure to subscribe, like, and what's the other thing? Follow, like. Don't follow me personally, but follow the show. Or follow me on Twitter. That's fine, too. Until next time, until Friday, when we will be back with another edition of Another Dooley Noted Podcast. I'm Pat Dooley saying I am deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.